Hello everyone, welcome to our virtual tabling where today we are going to talk about keeping your heart healthy. So even though this is part of the DPP, the Diabetes Prevention Program series, it's still very important to keep our heart healthy. So without further any interruptions, let's get started. So let's just talk a little bit about the heart. So the heart is an amazing organ of the body. It helps pump oxygen-rich blood throughout our body, which our body needs to survive and continue on to living. And if we don't take care of our heart and our arteries, it can lead to various problems. So for example, if we don't take care of our heart and our arteries, it can lead to things like chest pain. Sometimes you might hear it called angina, but chest pain is the more common terminology to use. You might also experience shortness of breath. You could experience kidney problems, narrowed or blocked arteries in the legs. So, of course, with diabetes, you have to take good care of your legs. And so if we don't take care of our heart and our arteries, that can, of course, lead to narrowed or blocked arteries in the legs, kind of further complicating things. We could also experience numbness, sexual problems, sudden death. We could experience like the thickened heart muscle, which makes it harder for our heart to pump blood. And we can even experience vision loss. So these are just some examples of problems that can happen with the heart and our arteries if we don't take proper care of them. So why exactly does heart health matter? This is a diabetes prevention series. And so, why are we talking about our heart health? But if we are pre-diabetic, that also does mean that we are at an increased risk of heart problems. And so that includes things like having a heart attack, possibly having a stroke, or even developing heart disease. So it's very important to keep our heart healthy in no matter where we are in our health journey. It's very important to keep our heart healthy. So how exactly do you keep your heart healthy? So one example is to stay active, reach or maintain a healthy weight. You can also choose foods that are rich in fiber, high in water, vitamins, minerals, and protein. Those are all good foods that are good for our heart health. Choose foods low in calories and fats. Again, good foods that are good for our heart are foods lower in calories and fats. We want to manage our stress. Stress it can be a big strain on our heart, so managing our stress is very important. And if you are a smoker, trying to quit, or at the very least, reducing the amount that you smoke. But what about salt? So we've all heard about salt and its kind of impact on blood pressure and everything. So too much salt can actually raise our blood pressure. And how it does this is salt actually pulls water into the bloodstream, which increases the volume of the blood. And this increased volume is what causes that extra strain on the arteries. And so if you're, consistently eating too much salt, that'll increase the volume of your blood, and then that repeated strain can actually damage your arteries over time. So it's very important to make sure that we're limiting our salt when it comes to our heart health. So how exactly do we limit our salt? So for example, you can choose or check the food labels rather for the salt content on foods. And this is a great way to kind of decide, in the grocery store whether a food is right for you. So usually if a food is low in salt, it'll be 5% or less on the back of a food label. So you want to make sure you're checking the food labels consistently and regularly when you're in the grocery store to see, just how much salt is in a package of food, and you can make an informed decision on whether that's right for you. Also cutting back on processed foods and eating more fresh foods. So a lot of processed foods tends to have a lot of salt in it, and that's to help preserve it over time, or for a longer period of time, I should say. So making sure that we cut back on processed foods and eating more fresh foods. So more fresh fruits and vegetables, more fresh meats, different things like that. And then also using more herbs and spices. So rather than salting your food in order to flavor it and season it, using herbs and spices. So things like oregano or thyme or basil. There's a whole plethora of spices that we can choose from. And a lot of them actually go very good together. So you can even get creative and combine your own seasonings and make your own seasoning blends. If you don't necessarily have the time for that, you can also check into things like Mrs. Dash. Mrs. Dash is a great option because they are salt-free seasoning blends, and they provide a lot of flavor and pack a lot of punch to your foods. And then rinsing canned foods with water. So if you like to use canned beans or canned vegetables, they're still a great source of veggies in your diet, but rinsing them off with just some cold water can actually get rid of a lot of the salt that's built up in the can, and will actually reduce the amount of sodium you're eating when you're eating canned fruits and vegetables. And then limiting fats for our heart health. So fats are actually a vital part of our diet. We need them to survive, but too much can be bad for our heart health. So saturated fats tend to increase our bad cholesterol, so we want to make sure that we're eating a lot of unsaturated fats. But we also still want to be careful of fats in general. Fats are pretty calorie dense, so fats provide 9 calories per gram, and that's actually twice as much as carbs or protein. Carbs and protein actually provide 4 calories per gram, so it's just about double the amount of calories per gram in fats. So we do want to make sure that we're limiting all kinds of fats, just so that we're not eating too much of them. So how exactly do you limit those fats? So for example, you can choose heart-healthy cooking methods. So things like sauteing, roasting, baking, they all require a very little amount of fat, and as such, are very much heart-healthy compared to things like frying or like shallow frying foods. And then you also want to cook with heart-healthy oils as opposed to animal sources of fats. So for example, like cooking with olive oil or canola oil, as opposed to using things like butter or lard, which are animal sources, and these butter and lard tends to have a lot more saturated fat in them. And then eating more lean meats or plant-based proteins. So of course, lean meats are things like wild game, so bison, venison, different things like that. But that also includes skinless poultry, so chicken, turkey, those are all good choices for lean meats. But even plant-based sources of proteins, so getting your protein from lentils or beans are another good option because they are completely fat-free. And so, you're not getting the fats that are cooked, that you would from, like, say, a very fatty steak or a fatty cut of pork or something like that. Choosing leaner meats or even plant-based proteins, if you're feeling adventurous, is a great way to kind of cut back on the amount of fats that you're eating. And so that is all that I have for you today. As always, let us know if you have any questions. You can send us an email at healthpromotion@glic.net, give us a call, or of course, just leave a comment down on the video below. And always tune in every Tuesday and Thursday on Facebook at 11 a.m. for weekly discussions and tips on healthy living. And you can also follow us on YouTube for even more health-related content. So I thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.